Welcome to this new automotive news video for Tuesday, March 24, 2026. Today we're going to talk about Peugeot, which has just made a particularly risky decision regarding its future 208. We'll talk about Toyota, which is abruptly stopping the sale of one of its models in France, but also about Skoda, which is announcing new entry-level versions, cheaper versions for two of its electric models. We'll discuss the French government, which is introducing some minor measures to help people handle rising fuel prices, and then covers several brief news items about the Volkswagen Group. For example, the fact that Volkswagen wants to outsource even more, even though its sales keep increasing, or the announcement of a massive recall affecting Volkswagen's electric vehicles, recall due to a fire risk. Just before all that, let me add a little extra information. Remember, a few days ago, we were talking about the European car sales figures for February 2026. Sales were slightly up. There was some information we didn't have, and I said I would come back to it once we got it. It was provided today by the ACEA, the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. This information is about the market share of different energy sources, different types of engines. Obviously, electrified engines are on the rise. Simple hybrids. Sales increased 10% over February 2025. Fully electric cars are up 20% compared to the same period, and plug-in hybrids are up 32%. Fully gasoline-powered cars keep dropping, down 17% for gasoline and down 13% for diesel. So there aren't too many surprises, except for a small one. However, it's about the market shares. Since in February 2026 compared to January 2026, just the month before. The first small surprise is that in terms of market share, fully gasoline-powered cars have gone up, with the combined market share of gasoline and diesel reaching 31.2% compared to 30.3% the previous month. So that's an increase of 0.9 points. And the second small surprise is a drop in the market share of fully electric cars, which went from 19.3% to 18.3% in February. A 1-point drop moves manufacturers further from their annual CO2 target and could cost them hundreds of millions or even billions of euros in fines. That's the quick update. Now let's move on to the topic that was in the summary of this video, a topic that I hope will interest you. If that's the case, as usual, I'm counting on you to show it by leaving a like, subscribing for the next videos, and boosting this one. And of course, also by leaving a comment where you share your thoughts on today's news. As I was saying, we'll start by talking a little about Peugeot, which has announced that it has made a particularly risky decision regarding its future 208. Alain Favet, the director of Peugeot, has just confirmed that the future car, which will replace the current 208, should arrive in 2027, and it will be based on the platform. STLA Small will only be marketed in a 100% electric version. There is no internal combustion or hybrid engine version planned for this new car, because the STLA Small chassis was designed by its engineers to be oriented towards electric cars. And it's a huge risk that Peugeot is taking with this new car, sold exclusively as 100% electric, because the 208 is currently its best seller. And that's true especially in the French market, where the 208 is literally the best-selling car. It's the top seller in France and Europe, where the 208 makes up about a quarter of total sales. By launching the new 208 only as an all-electric car, Peugeot risks losing customers unwilling or unable to switch to electric vehicles due to limited versatility or affordability, since electric cars are generally several thousand euros more expensive than their gasoline counterparts. And the problem is that by basing this 208 on the Peugeot doesn't really have a way to backtrack if sales of its future 208 collapse. The STLA Small platform, unlike the medium or the large, wasn't designed as a multi-energy platform like the medium or the large. Stellantis can make both fully electric vehicles and vehicles with combustion engines. Here, that probably won't be possible, which means that if sales of the 208 are bad, Peugeot and the Stellantis group will probably have to reinvest several tens or even hundreds of millions of euros to develop a new platform compatible with combustion engines, which could accommodate the new Peugeot 208. We've already seen how that worked out at Stellantis with another car, the Fiat 500. It was a huge bestseller. In fully combustion or hybrid versions, then the new fully electric version arrived. It sold well the first year, but after that, it was a colossal flop, to the point that Fiat had to urgently invest millions of euros to develop a combustion engine version, just to save what they could. Speaking of sales, by the way, there's more information about the future 208. Normally, the current 208 was supposed to get a new facelift. This should have boosted combustion engine 208 sales, which was set to continue for years after the electric version's launch. But we've now learned that won't happen. The 208, as we know it now, will be the last evolution of the 208. So there won't be any aesthetic update for the current 208, but there also won't be any new engines coming, which means we're really going to have to stick with the 1-liter PureTech sold in all its forms. until the very end of the 208. And one last detail about this engine, and this is where it gets a bit ridiculous. Alain Favet explained, and I quote, that the demand for electric vehicles will increase significantly in the coming years. So it's a calculated risk, and that's where it starts to get a bit unclear. Because Peugeot is part of the Stellantis group, and let's remember that Stellantis has spent tens of billions of euros in recent weeks to backpedal on going fully electric, explaining precisely that the group thought global sales of fully electric cars would stagnate, or at least grow much more slowly than what had been hoped. On a completely different topic, Toyota has just abruptly stopped selling one of its models in France. It's the Toyota Prius, which is actually quite new since the current generation only dates back to 2022. So it's only 4 years old. Toyota publicly explains that this decision was made because the brand is expanding its lineup in the C segment, which includes mid-size vehicles like the Toyota Prius, and that keeping this model could risk cannibalizing some of the sales of other models. The real probable reason is probably that the current 5th generation Prius is a total commercial flop in France. In 2025, only 410 were sold in France, a drop of almost 40% compared to the year 2024, which was already not a good year for that car. Despite the fact that the Prius is considered extremely reliable and extremely economical, it was also quite expensive, 39,400 euros minimum for the entry-level Prius in France. That's almost double the entry-level price of the 2000s. But if there are really some Prius fans among you, know that even though it's no longer sold in France, it will still be available in the rest of Europe, especially in Belgium. So if you absolutely want one, you'll just have to cross the border to get one. Since we're discussing prices, there's good news from there. Skoda, which now offers 2 new lower-end versions of its Elrock and Enyaq models, 2 models that will see a new 100% electric version coming. Equipped with cheaper batteries, LFP batteries that should allow them to reach between 400 and 430 km of range, with a power of 145 horsepower. For now, Skoda is talking about prices that are not yet fully official, but would be around 40,000 euros. For the entry-level Enyaq, compared to 47,000 currently and 35,000 for the Elrock compared to 38,600 at the moment. Knowing that in addition to these new prices and this new battery, they will also benefit from new technologies, such as the arrival of a new generation Android infotainment system, which will directly include an app store that will allow access to applications like Spotify or YouTube. The V2L, which allows you to power other electrical devices, like a coffee maker or a laptop, with the vehicle's battery, as well as new driver assistance features, including the new emergency assist system, which can automatically steer the vehicle onto the emergency lane if the driver shows no sign of reaction in case of illness, or if the driver has fallen asleep. I also wanted to talk to you about the small measures announced by the French government regarding fuel prices. We know that right now fuel is very expensive. In neighboring countries, in Spain, for example, they decided to lower the VAT on fuel from 21% to 10%. In Italy, there too. A tax reduction for 20 days with a decrease of about 20 cents per liter. In France, we don't have oil. But we don't have any ideas either, since the only thing they're able to announce is not a tax cut nor a drop in the pump price, but an adjustment in payment options. Specifically, it will be possible to spread out the payment for your fuel over several monthly installments. For example, expenses that are not reduced, but simply postponed. Knowing that, in addition, for now, this only concerns professionals, meaning farmers and transporters. It's still important because when oil prices go up for fishermen, transporters, or farmers, it definitely means much more expensive products in stores. As for the average French person, well, they're out of luck. Since no adjustments or tax reductions are planned, the government prefers to line its own pockets. And speaking of lining their own pockets, let's quickly talk about Volkswagen for a few different news updates. Since the group announced that, even though Volkswagen Group's sales are pretty good and sales are even increasing, the group is sticking to its restructuring plan, which calls for cutting at least 50,000 jobs in Germany alone over the next 4 years. Olivier Blum, Volkswagen's director, said developing and building vehicles in Europe, especially Germany, was more viable. Volkswagen's obsession isn't to increase its sales, it's to increase its profit margins. The goal is 4%. He explained that he wanted to take inspiration from the Chinese method, that is, to produce more and more with fewer and fewer employees, and trouble never comes alone. Volkswagen has just announced a recall of more than 100,000 electric vehicles, mainly Volkswagen ID models, but also Cupra-born, which were produced between 2022 and 2024. Volkswagen hasn't given many details about the problem. All we know is that it's a battery issue, that some of their modules do not meet the required specifications. This could lead, in the least serious cases, to reduced range and the appearance of a warning light, and in the most serious cases, to thermal runaway and a fire. As part of this recall, Volkswagen plans to install a software update on the affected vehicles and an inspection of each battery and every module at the workshop to check whether the defect is present or not. If that's the case, the battery will be replaced for free. Otherwise, you'll be back on the road with your Volkswagen ID. That was the little news update for this Tuesday, March 24. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, I'm counting on you to show it by leaving a like and subscribing for the next videos. You can also support the channel by clicking the join button below. See you tomorrow for the next one. Bye.